What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm going to keep today's intro very short because if you clicked on this video, you saw the thumbnail and you've read the title and you know what this is about. I'm going to be ranking my top 15 NBA players going into this coming season. The one special criteria I do have is that the injury sliders are turned all the way off, meaning I do not factor injury into how I rank these players. This is just who the best players are in the NBA without injury being a factor. But before we get into ranking each player, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and share to help the channel grow. And without further ado, let's start with number 15. Jimmy is a guy that I'm not as high on as others, but I respect what he's done. No matter how overhyped it may be from time to time, enough to put in the top 15 of current player rankings. Jimmy has been the best player on a Miami Heat team that's been to the finals 2 times in the past 4 years. And in 2022, he carried the Heat throughout the entirety of the playoffs where they came within one shot of making it to the finals, which would have put them in the finals 3 times in the past 4 years. As a player, Jimmy's strengths are his ability to drive to the basket, his mid-range shooting, his defensive tenacity, his ball security as he barely ever turns the ball over, and his propensity to, at times, step up in the playoffs and play at a truly legendary level. I couldn't put him any higher than the 15 spot due to him not being as consistent a performer as other players on the list, especially in the regular season, and as quiet as it's kept in the postseason too. Couple that with the fact that he's not quite as elite at any particular thing as it regards to skill as others on the list, and the number 15 spot feels right for Jimmy. Now this ranking may come as a surprise to some, having Shai as the 14th best player in the league, but I look at this ranking more so as a testament to just how absurdly talented the NBA is at the moment. Shai is a very, very good player who looks to be a superstar in the making. Key words, in the making. While I do believe that Shai is great, he has quickly become one of the more overrated players in the league, where I've seen him on lists where he's ranked in the top 10, and even some lists where he's in the top 5, which is seriously pushing it. The main reason I can't put Shai any higher than 14 isn't based on skill. He has, as the kids say, a deep bag. He has an elite handle, is an excellent driver of the basketball, who plays at and above the rim at an elite level. He has a deadly mid-range shot, and his famous spin move where he drives to the basket and stops for a pull-up jumper is money. Not to mention that he has one of the smoothest games in the league and isn't a bad defender who excels at blocking shots and steals. The reason I can't put Shai above others on this list is due to consistency. Last year at age 24 was his first season making an All-NBA team and an All-Star team. I just need to see him do it again. I'm certain by the end of next season I'll have him ranked higher than 14, but for now, I just need to see more. And now to go from the antithesis of Shai and Jimmy when it comes to public opinion is Ja Morant, who has become criminally underrated. Ja's without a doubt one of the league's most electric and entertaining players to watch, and while he may not be very large physically, he is a huge presence when he's on that court. Over the past 2 years, he's been a walking 27, 6, and 7 on 48% shooting, and he's someone who also steps his game off in the playoffs where he goes 26, 7, and 9 on 43% shooting from the field and 37% shooting from 3. And we cannot forget how he completely massacred the Warriors back in 2022 when he averaged a whopping 38, 6, and 8 with 3 steals, shot 50% from the field, and 43% from 3 over a 3-game stretch against the number 1 rated defense in the entire league. He's been the best player on a team that's been ranked 2nd in the Western Conference in back-to-back years and averages winning 54 games per season. And when it comes to scoring, Ja just might be one of the scariest players in the league because when he gets hot, you are completely at his mercy as he will run by you, jump over you, and start making shots from range. Now I know he's done some knuckleheaded things off the court, but we cannot let that distract us from the fact that Ja Morant is an elite player when he is on the court. It almost feels wrong to say a player like Devin Booker is only the 12th best in the league, because I firmly believe if you put him in any other decade in league history, he's easily a top 10 player, probably closer to the 5 to 7 range. Devin has worked himself into becoming a player that honestly has no offensive weaknesses, and really no overall weakness in his game as a whole. He went from being a chair defensively to now a solid defender. He's turned to a noticeably better passer playmaker, and he's a 28-5-5 guy on 49% shooting. And over the past 2 seasons, he shot 37% from 3 on 6.5 attempts per game. His mid-range shot is one of, if not the best in the game, and his playoff elevation is certainly there, as last year, in my opinion, he was the second best player in the playoffs, only trailing Finals MVP Nikola Jokic, as Booker averaged an astounding 33-5-7 on 58% shooting from the field and a mind-bending 51% from 3 on 5.5 attempts per game. He's the best shooting guard in the game, and he's only getting better. Damian Lillard is an all-time special talent that we as viewers have the privilege to watch. He is one of my favorite players in the league, and his pairing with Giannis in Milwaukee might just be the scariest pairing the league has ever seen from a skills perspective. Having a player with the handle, lateral quickness, elite shot making, and finishing at the basket abilities in Dame, paired with Giannis, could prove to be unstoppable. This past season, Dame put up averages of 32-5-7 on 46% shooting from the field and 37% from 3 on 11 attempts per game. And he also had 2 games this year where he scored 60 and 71 points respectively. And in the playoffs, there's virtually no drop off in his performance, as in his past 3 postseasons, he's been the same guy he was in the regular season. And in my opinion, just from a shot-making perspective, Dame is the second greatest shooter to have ever lived. Now, there are some detractors who will say that Dame had empty stats last season, as the Blazers only won 33 games. But I will push back on that by saying the games that Portland won, Dame had to average 34. And in the games they lost, he averaged 30. So there wasn't so much a fact that it was empty stats, but it was the fact that Dame did everything in his power to try to win games. He just didn't have enough help next to him to do that. But with him now being in Milwaukee, I don't think he'll have that problem anymore. Rounding out the top 10, I have Anthony Davis. AD is one of the most fascinating players in all of basketball, because on any given night he can look like the clear-cut best player in the league, and on others he can have you feeling like he could have performed so much better than what he actually did. But regardless, AD is locked in as a top 10 player, and by the time the season's over, he could be ranked much higher than the 10th spot. AD has a strong case to be labeled the best two-way player in the league, as he is the best defensive player in all of basketball, and can go out and average 26 points on 56% shooting. And in the playoffs this year, he was head and shoulders the best defensive player, who had he made it to the finals and won, we would have been saying he had one of the greatest defensive postseason runs of all time, where he averaged 3.1 blocks and 14.1 rebounds per game. And although he tragically did not make an All-Star or All-NBA team this year, Davis essentially had a career year in terms of his efficiency from the field, his mid-range shot falling, and his game visually looking the best it's looked since the 2020 season. The fluidity, the springiness in his jumping, and the speed to get around defenders when backing them down that made him so special have returned to his game. And although he's not the biggest fan of it, he is a dominant force at the center position and showed enthusiasm when it came to dunking over the top of and overpowering opponents. The only reason he ranks at the number 10 spot and not in the top 5 is due to him not being the most consistent player in the league. Last season, Davis showed stretches of consistent play and was phenomenal. And if he can continue to build on that this year, the NBA is in trouble. This list is strictly about the 15 best players in the league regardless of injury. Simply, who are the best players in the NBA? And I don't see enough lists that are pure like this because none of them have Kawhi in the top 10. Kawhi is another player on this list who virtually has no weaknesses in his game. He can drive to the basket in either direction, has a strong post-up game, is a mid-range assassin, a sniper from 3, and a very good defensive player. The only thing he's not great at is being a facilitator with his passing. But if he's in a bind, it's nothing for him to hit a turnaround, jumper, or a fadeaway, and more times than not, it's good. Last year, Kawhi put up averages of 24, 6, and 4 on 51% shooting and 41% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. Then in the playoffs, albeit he only played 2 games, he averaged 34, 6, and 6 on 54% from the field and 60% from 3 versus the Suns. When he's on the court, Kawhi is one of the more consistent players in the league. But that's the problem. He's very rarely on the court. And he hasn't played more than 55 games in the season since 2020. Hopefully this will be the season where Kawhi is healthy and plays at a level we all know he can. I'm a huge fan of Kevin Durant and his game. He has one of the smoothest, patient, and visually stimulating offensive games in the entire league. And there is not a single place on the court within 24 feet of the basket that he cannot score with insane efficiency. And for a 6'10 guy, his handle, paired with his otherworldly shot making, make him virtually impossible to cover. Now, having said all that, I think KD has become a tad bit overrated when I consistently see him on lists where he's ranked in the top 5. KD is great, but I can't put him any higher than 8th on this list due to the fact that his game, while aesthetically phenomenal, is a bit too one-dimensional in relation to the players ranked above him. Over the past 2 years in the regular season, Kevin put up averages of 29, 7, and 5 on 53% shooting from the field and 39% from 3. But in his past 2 postseasons, we've seen his counting stats stay roughly the same at 28, 8, and 5, but his efficiency, the thing that makes him so special, falls off a cliff, where he goes from shooting 53% from the field down to 45%, and 39% from 3 down to 33%. It's not a major indictment on him as a player, but for him to shoot the ball more and then become noticeably less efficient in the playoffs, I just don't see a reason to rate him above players in the 7 through 1 spots. Jason Tatum was a tricky player to rank because I wasn't fully certain if he's actually the 7th best player in the NBA. But when you look back at what he's accomplished over the past 4 years, which is having been to the finals once and then the conference finals twice, so in a 4-season stretch, he's been the best player on a team that's been to at least the conference finals in 3 of them. He made first team All-NBA in back-to-back years, and last season, he made history as the first Celtic to average 30 points for a season, putting up averages of 30, 9, and 4 on 46-35 splits. My question was answered. Tatum deserves to be number 7 on this list. Jason is an elite wing player who can seamlessly play the 2 through the 4, and his patented sidestep 3-ball, his spin move that turns into a fadeaway jumper, and his size and strength combo that allows him to drive to the basket at will are all things that make him an elite player. Add to that he's a very good defender, and now you're looking at one of the best players in the entire league. The only reason he doesn't rank higher is due to the fact that there are times in both the regular season and in the playoffs where he kind of just goes missing. And it could be for a few games, the length of one game, or in large chunks of games where he's just not playing at his fullest potential or contributing much on the court. Consistency can sometimes be a thing with him. But when he's on his game, which is more times than not, he is truly remarkable. LeBron James, the ageless wonder. Year 21, age 38, in one slot outside the top 5. While Father Time has taken some of his athleticism and had him on the bench due to injury a lot more than we've seen in the past, when he's healthy, LeBron is still one of the best players in the league. And there are games when you watch him and think to yourself, he just might actually still be the best player in the league. Last year, LeBron put up averages of 29, 8, and 7 on 50% shooting from the field and shot an almost career-high 77% from the free throw line on an almost career-low 6 attempts per game. There really isn't much LeBron can't do on a basketball court. He's a darn near walking triple-double who is one of the best passers in the league, can easily grab 8 to 9 rebounds per game. He's one of the best drivers in all of basketball, and still one of the best finishers above the rim. His turnaround jumper has become a reliable tool in his arsenal at this stage in his career, where he hits roughly 40% of those shots, and he still possesses the speed, enthusiasm, and hustle to pick up transition points. He's also put to rest the idea that he doesn't play defense anymore, when in the regular season he was a good defender, and then in the playoffs he was a phenomenal defender, who according to the metrics was one of the better defensive players in the entire postseason. And speaking of the playoffs, LeBron put up averages of 24, 10, and 6 on 50% shooting as he led the Lakers to the Western Conference Finals. Overall, LeBron is a master of the game, and when he's at his best, there are very few who are better. Coming in at number 5 on the list is the reigning league MVP Joel Embiid. The two-way superstar who averaged 33, 10, and 4 on 55% shooting and led the league in scoring for the second year in a row. A feat that hasn't been done by a center since Bob McAdoo back in 1974 through 1976. Offensively, Joel is a player that can score with insane efficiency from anywhere inside the arc, as he is excellent off the dribble, is a great lob threat, one of the better mid-range shooters in the league, and an excellent post player. He is also a respectable three-point shooter who can make a defense pay for leaving him open. Defensively, he is a switchable defender who has enough lateral quickness to guard certain players on the perimeter, and he's an excellent rim protector. I don't have to go into too much detail about why the league MVP is a top 5 player, but what I will spend some time speaking on are the people who say he's the worst MVP in recent memory, because that's just absolutely ridiculous and honestly a stupid thing to say. It'd be easier for you to say you just don't watch Joel Embiid play basketball, or you have no idea how the MVP works. So let me help you all out with something. The MVP award is a regular season award. It has nothing to do with the playoffs. It is a regular season award. And this past regular season, obviously the people who said that did not watch Joel play basketball, because while I'm a Laker fan and I watch every single game, the team I watch the second most are the Philadelphia 76ers. And I would say I watched about close to 60 Sixers games this year. Joel Embiid was absolutely deserving of the regular season MVP. He was dominant. He was an absolute scoring machine. He was an excellent defender. He deserved to win the MVP award. But there are some people who say Joel Embiid is a choker in the playoffs and he's not very good. And again, you're not watching Joel Embiid play basketball, or you're just mindlessly speaking without context. Joel Embiid in the 2020 and 2021 season put up averages of 28 and 11 on 50% shooting. He is a very good playoff performer. Now, the reason people are saying he's not a good playoff performer is because they're looking at the last 2 seasons. 2021, when he injured his thumb and needed surgery and had a right orbital bone fracture and wasn't able to play the same. And in this past season, while he didn't start off great the first 2 or 3 games, he did tear his meniscus and wasn't the same player. So to say that Joel is this playoff choker when he literally has darn near season-ending injuries every single postseason but plays through them and is clearly not the same as he was in the regular season when he was healthy, it's just ludicrous to say. Joel Embiid is one of the best players in the league, and if he is healthy this year in the playoffs, he will show you why he is actually a very good playoff performer. Now, the reason I don't have Joel any higher than 5 on this list is due to consistency. While he is unbelievably talented and dominant in every way, shape, and form, there are times when he kind of drifts in and out in certain games, and you would think he would perform better than what he actually did. If Joel had a motor that had him play a bit more consistently, similar to someone like Giannis, he would easily be the second best player in the league. But for now, Joel Embiid occupies the number 5 spot. the scariest offensive player in all of basketball, who the moment he crosses half court with the ball in his hand, becomes the most dangerous man on the planet. Steph has a strong case to be considered the best scorer in the league, given his insane scoring range paired with his robotic-like efficiency. And this past season could be considered one of his most efficient in his entire career, given the amount of threes he let go per game in relation to his overall field goal percentage. Steph also pulled down a career-high 6 rebounds per game this season, giving him an average of 29, 6, and 6 per night, which almost sounds like prime LeBron averages. Steph occupies the 4th spot on this list due to his insane scoring, his ability to play on and off the ball that either way creates offense, his consistency game in and game out, and his ability to go supernova and detonate for 50 points in a game like he did 3 times this season, and most notably in Game 7 versus the Kings in the playoffs last year. At age 35, going into year 15, the chef still looks like he's in his prime. Luka is the most fascinating player out of everybody on this list. I've been watching this game closely his entire career, and every year, almost every game, I'm still in awe at how great he is. He's a literal magician on the court who put up an average of 32, 8, and 8 this season on 49% shooting. And he's one of the few players in the league that I would say is absolute must-see television. He has so many moves, so many counters, has great footwork, is very smart, and understands all the nuances of the game. Then you get into his preternatural passing ability, which in my eyes is already top 10 all time, and you're essentially looking at a perfect offensive player that can easily grab you 8 boards a night. But beyond his offensive capabilities, the other part of his game that has actually improved is his defense. Early in his career, defense was a glaring weakness of his, but over the past 2 seasons, Luka's actually turned himself into a solid defensive player that uses his 6'7", 230-pound plus frame to get in the way of opponents as he displays a much more higher level of engagement on that side of the floor. This year, he recorded the NBA's first ever 60-point, 20-rebound triple-double. And it seems like almost every single year he breaks a minimum 1 NBA record. Factor in that Luka is also one of the greatest playoff performers that the sport has ever seen, and he's either a regular season MVP, a championship appearance, or a finals MVP away from being crowned the best player in the game. For the past 2 to 3 seasons, Giannis has comfortably occupied the number 1 spot on this list. But for the first time since the turn of the decade, he sits at the number 2 spot. And it's not like there's a huge gap between him and the player who sits at number 1. Honestly, if someone told me that Giannis was still the best player in the league, while I would disagree, I wouldn't have a mountain of evidence to prove otherwise. Giannis is one of, if not the most unstoppable force in the entire league when driving to the basket. He's an excellent lob target and a freight train in transition, which led to him putting up 31 points a night last year while only playing 32 minutes a game, which was a whole 2.5 minutes less than the next closest player who averaged 30 or more last season. Giannis is one of the best two-way players in the league, as he can drop 31 points a game and be a defensive force on the other side of the court, especially as a weak side help defender who can guard the 3 through the 5 effortlessly. And one of the things I admire most about his game is the energy and passion he plays with game in and game out that you really don't see in too many players this side of Russell Westbrook. Now this season, Giannis will be paired with the number 11 player on the list, Damian Lillard. And what the two of them could do to the NBA this year might look like something straight out the book of Revelation. And by the time the season is over, Giannis could very well reclaim his number 1 spot atop the list. The most unguardable player in the NBA and the reigning Finals MVP. This past postseason, Nikola Jokic put on display one of the 8 to 9 greatest individual playoff runs in league history, where he broke multiple records and put up averages of 30, 13, and 9 on 55% shooting from the field and 46% shooting from 3. He was without a doubt the best player in last year's playoffs and capped it off by grabbing the one award that had been avoiding him the past few years, the Finals MVP. What makes Jokic so special is the fact that on offense, he is a one-man army that is in every way unguardable. The best post player in the league? Check. Can he be stopped at the rim? No. Elite mid-range shooter? Check. Great three-point shooter? Check. And if you think sending a double team will stop him, it won't. Jokic is arguably the best passer in the league and has already solidified himself as one of the best passers in league history. There is nothing you can do to stop him. But beyond his offensive prowess, Jokic has turned himself into a respectable defender who displays active hands in passing lanes, is very good in the post, and is a solid rim protector. Until further notice, Nikola Jokic is the best player in basketball. And that's going to do it for my player rankings, where we have Nikola Jokic as the best player in the league and Jimmy Butler as the 15th best player. Let me know in the comments what y'all think about the video, if you agree, if you disagree, if you want to say there's players I missed, or if there's players I had in the wrong order. Comment down below what your thoughts are. Until next time, I'll see you on the next video. Peace.